Our next speaker is Dan Stevenson. Many of you know him. Dan is Westbrook's Economic Development Director. Westbrook is the town which is leading the state in housing creation with over 1,600 units of housing in its pipeline. Westbrook's recent boom in development is due in large part to the work that Dan and his colleagues at City Hall have done working with developers and making the town a fair place to do business. Please welcome Dan Stevenson.
Thank you. It's a pleasure being here. I can assure you of one thing. I am a large source of that tension in Augusta right now. And so before I start my presentation, I would like to say something. I think we need to be cautious about making broad strokes about what municipalities are doing and not doing. And that's the same for what the state is doing. So when it comes to the home rule versus the state, I would hope you would all understand in the room there are a number of communities that are implementing that comp plan, that have had the rules changed on them immediately, and that are doing really good work. I think that's important. One of our colleagues here said earlier about a slide, you can't be that person to get up there and make a comment about this can't be applicable across one data point across the entire state. I agree with that. And then you have to also then not make the changes. What I like to say in Westbrook is we do that. We do both. And I think I'm uniquely qualified when it comes to policy work because I spent a decade at DECD. I was at the street level doing CDBG work for years. I oversaw the tax incentive programs for years. I did policy work for years. But the last 15 years, I've been doing it at the local level. I know many of you out there. I've done deals with a lot of you. And when you work at the local level, you can understand how policy at the state level directly affects you. And sometimes it has the opposite effect. I just want to be able to make those statements. I'll tell you what I do like. I do like that the state is stepping up, though, to work together on some of these policy issues. So as I walk through what we're doing in Westbrook, I want to share one thing. Everything that I'm going to talk about today, we did locally without LD 2003. And we're making a big impact. Next slide, please. Oh, okay. Thank you. Without reading this, you can read this. I think the most important thing to do is what we did in the city of Westbrook. You have to identify your problem first. You have to identify it locally, and you have to identify it regionally. And I talk to people a lot. How many people are from the county or have been to the county? Is it the same as Cumberland and York County? They're different animals. And so you need to talk to your partners who do it. Nathan Zayton just got up here. I've done a deal with Nathan in Biddeford. He's an outstanding developer, and he's conscientious, and he manages his projects well. If you've not done a deal with Nathan, you want to do a deal with Nathan. But you got to talk to Nathan. You talk to Westbrook Housing. We do a lot of deals with them. Talk to Avesta. I got a deal going with them right now. Talk to Maine Housing. Have them help us locally identify what the problem is. You heard him talk about his capital stack. Land use problems. How do we then can address making land use changes that directly affect what's happening in our community? And if we can make those changes, we can then help truly facilitate dealing with affordable housing issues that we have in our own communities. I'm so glad Nathan talked about a capital stack. We talk about land use all the time. No one wants to talk how you pencil a deal. They're very difficult, and they're difficult all over the state. And if you don't have an understanding on how that's done, it's very difficult to drive land use policy when you don't understand how a deal's put together. You need to be results-oriented. We are in Westbrook. We keep our council abreast of what's going on so they can be big supporters of how to deal with affordable housing and other issues in our community. Remember, at the local level, we're talking about housing today, but then what happens if we fill everything with housing? How many of you guys do industrial deals out there? Commercial deals out there? We can't do it without recognizing that. We have a fabric that we work with. Every time a decision is made, it affects everything else in our community. Because when things go awry, they don't go to the local legislator. They don't go back to the developer. They come to City Hall. So we have to be smart and cognizant about the things we do. And next steps, Always be up to speed. Talk to your local brokers out there. They know what the market is in your area. That's what I do. Next slide, please. Oh, okay, sorry. So what did we do? So in Westbrook, we made some simple changes that gave us 6 projects immediately. So the first thing we said is, okay, we had a small truncated area in our downtown that had higher density. It had smaller units. You could literally build right lot line to lot line. And we were still working on trying to get some more housing there. We talked to a number of developers, and they said, you need to expand it in Westbrook. And if you do that, we can drive housing into where you want it in your downtown, where all your infrastructure is, where access to transportation is. I'm concerned about some legislation that goes through it contributes to sprawl. We're a rural state, and I know we're car dependent, but we're going to be for a while. We don't play make pretend in the city of Westbrook. Look at real people's issues on how they get to and from work. And I think most of you understand that living in a rural community. We also realize that the state has 190 square feet for a unit. How many of you live in 190 square feet? It's a nice thing to say, but live in it. So we figured 400 square feet is reasonable for safe housing for people. So we had that. Parking, we disagree with removing parking standards. We believe in negotiated parking standards, and that's what we do in Westbrook. So let me give you an example. You come in and you say, you know what, we have 1 space per unit. But you know something? If you're on the metro, you can reduce that. If you have senior housing, you can reduce that. If you have an agreement with someone who's over-parked, which we disagree with, you should not be over-parking stuff, and you can have a commercial business next to you that allows parking, you can continue to have reduced parking. So it's negotiated based off the project. And guess what? It's successful. And then we can measure that to see if it works long term. But that's a lot better than having somebody mandate what it's going to be. Remember Sainaget, Maine, or Westbrook, Maine. And we are adamant about pushing our investments into our downtown, and that's what we're doing now. So we all talk about AMI, right? Area medium income, we all know what it is. I decided to put it up there because we hear constantly the confusion around workforce housing versus affordable housing. Well, there it is right there, right? So if you look at 60, 50, and 30% AMI, you can get tax credits for 60 and 50% AMI. Show of hands developers out there. How many of you, because I would love to know what's out there for 80% and 120% AMI. Not a lot. There's some. Smaller boxes typically, but there's not a lot, right? And Maine Housing's in here. They can talk all, how they run their LIHTC deals. I just wanted to put that up there to show that's the income amount. And if you go to the far right, you can see where the subsidies are. I'm concerned about when you talk about inclusionary zoning without money or tax credits behind it. It's hard to pencil some of the deals. We got to look at the whole package when we do that. That is Westbrook's downtown right there, that whole blue area. If anyone's traveled through Westbrook, there's a triangle at one end of Main Street, and it goes all the way down to where 25 crosses over when you're ready to go to Gorham. That entire area is where we made those changes, and we had 6 projects come in. There's over 200 units. Here's one of them. Ryan Lay has done this project in our downtown. Why we had photos back to back is we believe you need to have commercial on your bottom floor. I actually heard someone say you shouldn't do that. I'm like, that doesn't contribute to a vibrant downtown. And right across the street, we have a park. So this project's up and running. That's 12 units. It's in our downtown, and it's fully leased up, except only a portion of the commercial is leased up. This project, this is also Ryan Lay's project as well. That one is 12 units. That was leased up prior. That's also right behind that project. That is fully leased up, and it's all walkable to our downtown. Chris Wilson did this project right in our downtown. Actually, Mills Barbershop. I'm due for a haircut. That's where I go, so feel free. They do a great job. Commercial on the bottom floor. You could only do 3 units. Couldn't pencil the deal. We put the overlay district in. You get 6 units. The deal's a go, and it's funded, and it's full. This project here is a mixed project. It's over 120 units. Half of them, that's Jack Soley's project. He shoots for 120% AMI. The other half is Avesta, and that's a senior LIHTC deal on that side. They're very creative how they get together to buy down the cost of the purchase. It's so important. The way to control rent, you got to buy down the capital cost, for those of you who don't know that. You can't control rents without buying down the cost of the project. That one will be under construction soon. That would not have happened if we would have made those changes. And then they have another 60-plus units scheduled for phase 2 after this one's done. If anyone's been through downtown Westbrook, the bottom right slide, that's vertical harvest. We're putting a large greenhouse in our downtown. Why we put this slide, and this is the heart of our downtown. The city built a parking garage that's going to be free and open to the public to concentrate parking in the downtown. And then the end cap on the other side is going to be a housing project. We pushed really hard to get a LIHTC deal done, but as Nathan had brought up earlier, it was so expensive during COVID, we lost it. It's going to be an affordable housing, it's going to be a market rate housing project. I also wanted to give a big shout out to Westbrook Housing. They've been a partner with the city for quite some time. You can read the number of these two projects they've done recently. They're great partners to work with. And they've, as you can see on the bottom one, which is Keys to Developer, rehabbed over 300 affordable units within the last 5 years. We listen to them and we partner with them. And the last comment I have here is those areas in red, see how 2 of them on the right, those are parking lots. We just put out an RFP to redevelop those lots, and we have a hard push on there to put affordable housing units under those standards on upper floors to get the density in the downtown that we need. There'll be more to come on that because we just put the RFP out. I only put this in to show how not all data points work depending on where you are in the state. I'll make one point about this. If you look at the population, what do we hear locally all the time? You're going to blow our schools up, right? Isn't that what you guys hear? You're going to build this, you're going to blow our schools up, we can't afford it. In Westbrook, look at students. Westbrook's having the opposite effect. They're putting a lot of units, but we're not having a lot of students. But that's not true in other surrounding communities. They're putting units in their school systems going up. So what's the point of that slide? It's difficult to make broad-based policy decisions when you really don't have all the data on how things affect communities that are even adjacent to each other. And then I'll just end with this slide. I'm over time, so I'm available for any questions you may have. Thank you very much.